Hello, everyone. Happy Wednesday afternoon, early evening to you. I'm glad that you're able to join us for this online Q&A session that I'll be doing on Wednesdays through the fall and the winter for you. And what I want to do here is show you uh, some results from the Grant Thornton Invitational that happened last week. And uh, many of you I know watched that, here and there a little bit. I watched it here and there a little bit. So it was kind of a fun event, as we talked about last week, with the ladies playing with the men as teammates. And then a couple other things I'll cover today for you is the significance of your putt and chip, since we are here in the winter. 2 shots of the 5, right, are your putt and chip. And I really want those of you who are Suggs players and those of you who I've known over the years also, and maybe some of you who are new to me and the way I do things, I want you to really think about, boy, I have 4 cold months here for most of us in the US to kind of hibernate relative to my golf game. But I want you to think about ways where you can actually improve your golf game during your golf hibernation these 4 winters. So it should be a lot of fun to go through that today. And as always, feel free that the purpose of this is kind of like office hours. Back in college, when we were all in college, we had office hours. If you were really, had a burning question in your mind and the prof really couldn't take care of it during the class, then you were able to go to their office hours and just sit down with them by yourself and kind of get some questions answered, get some things cleared up. And so that's how I want this half hour to be for you on Wednesdays. I'll do it at different times for you, different Wednesdays, and I'll let you know a few days in advance what time of the day that will be. So let's get into and again, feel free to ask your questions. You can unmute your audio if you want to ask me that question. And you can send me items on the chat if you want to send me a little comment or something. If you disagree with me, feel free to send me a little comment on the chat as well. So the first thing I want to show you is this scoreboard from the Grant Thornton Invitational that happened last week. And what I want you to notice here is some pretty huge differences in the scores. And I mentioned that to you last week, that the formats will create quite a bit of difference in the scores. And so there were only 16 teams in the field. So 16th place at 13 under there is last place. And so I thought we could take people who were tied for 9th and say they were about average in the field. And it's nice that we have 3 teams that got tied for 9th. So we can look at their scores and say, gee, that must be pretty representative of what's going on. So you look at the 3 teams that were tied for 9th. Let me explain this to you. The first round was just a normal two-player scramble. The second round was alternate shot, where one of the players teed off on all the even holes, the other player teed off on all the odd numbered holes. And then from there, they took turns hitting the one ball for their team until that ball got holed. So most people call that alternate shot. Some people call it foursomes. And so because they're only playing their ball some of the time, that's an easy way to remember. The formal name of that format is called foursome. You hit the ball sometime. And then on the third day, remember there was a scramble the first day, alternate shot, same thing as foursomes, here on the second day. And then on the third day, the third round, they had kind of a modified better ball. So In the strict sense of the word, better ball means that you play your ball all the time. Ball, all, like for some, you play it some of the time in four sums. That was the second day. But now remember, the third day was a modified four ball, which means they played their own ball the whole time. So each player played their own ball, just like they were playing a normal round of golf on their own ball. They played it all the time. And then whichever player scored better between the two of them on each hole is the score that got used for their team score. So let's say I was playing with, I don't know, Annika Sorenstam. We would each play our own ball to the end of the hole, and whoever, like if she made a 3 and I made a 4, we would use her 3 as our team score for that hole. Now, the only difference on that third round at the Grant Thornton Invitational last week was that they didn't use their own drive. Each of them hit a drive, one from the ladies' tee markers, one from the men's, and then they switched drives. So again, if I was playing with Annika, let's say, I would hit a drive, she would hit a drive, and then I would go find her ball after her drive and play it all the rest of the way in and use that as my score for the hole. She, from the teeing ground, would find my drive where my ball went, and she would play my ball in from the rest of the way to play that ball to see what she scored on the hole. Between the two of us, whichever score was lower for that hole is the score we used. So now let's look at this. Remember last week I told you that for most of you who play in the fall and the winter league over the last 15 seasons, your team averages about 20 shots higher in the alternate shot than it averages in the scramble. So let's look at the first two rounds here for the tour players. And let's look at these three teams that finished ninth. All right. So this team was 16 shots higher in their scramble. This team was 11 shots higher in their scramble. This team was 14 shots higher. So let's add those up, the differences. So 16 plus 11 is 27, plus 14 is 43. So 43 shots higher divided by 3 is about 14 shots higher on average. They shot in their scramble than they did in their higher, 14 shots higher in their alternate shot than in their scramble. All right, let me know if that makes sense. Type in a question or unmute yourself. Let me know if you have any questions about that. 14 shots higher in the scramble, the second round, round 2 there, than they were in their alternate shot. Now let's look at the modified 4-ball, which is essentially where they're playing their own ball in. Again, there was a little alteration there where they played each other's drive, but from there, they played one ball, their own ball in, actually played their other ball from their other partner, but they played a ball in the rest of the way, just as if they were playing individually. And so now let's look at these three teams. This team was 10 shots higher in their scramble than in the 4-ball. So 10 and 9 is 19, and 6 is 25. So on average, in the 4-ball, they shot 8 shots lower for 18 holes than they did in their alternate shot. And that means they were 6 shots higher on average in their 4-ball than they were in their scramble in round 1. So, any questions about that? Any reactions to that? All right. So, all right. So I don't see any questions about that. So the reason I bring this up, I have many reasons to bring this up. You know, we still live in a free country. So you do not have to just go always play your own ball when you play golf and then judge yourself based on how low you shot on your own ball. What I've found over the years is that, again, in my kind of hippie way thinking about life and in golf, you can be open-minded and say, you know what, maybe, we'll have our regular foursome, and maybe before we tee off, when we're getting out of the clubs out of the parking lot, I say to my other three friends that were playing golf, I said, hey guys, why don't we play a scramble today? Just to have a little something different. All right. So how about if Fred and I played John, we played you and Ted. It's John and Ted against Joel and Fred today. It's a two-man scramble. Let's just see what happens. And then maybe John and Ted say, oh, well, you guys are way better. Joel and Fred, you guys are going to kill us. You guys are way better players in a scramble. And we say, okay, we'll give you 2 shots per 9. And they say, oh, that is kind of equitable. We'll take that. That sounds fair. Sounds like a good handicap. So it just is a little something to change things up for you. I've found it very enjoyable for most of us to do that. And another thing about that is that most of the time, we're surprised how low we shoot in a scramble. And then, so I've found that you can learn many, many things about your game and about your teammate's game, your partner's game, when you play a 2-player scramble or a 3-player or a 4-player scramble. And so quite often you guys and girls will be surprised at how low you can shoot. And then you kind of say to yourself, well, that's because we had a scramble. I'm really not that good. But what I would say to you is that, interestingly, apparently you are that good. You and your teammate, if it was a 2-player scramble, you and your teammate were apparently good enough to shoot those low scores in that scramble. And so what I've learned to say over the years is that you were apparently good enough to shoot those lower scores in a scramble. You hit about half the shots. If, on average, your 2-person team used half of your shots and half of your teammates' shots, then apparently somewhere between the two of you shot that nice low score. So it's a great way to see what I say is your potential for your golf game by playing a 2-player scramble. So I hope you would take me up on that and do that. This is the wintertime also. Since many of you play in club events at your country club, or you play in a league, folks from church or from work or a bunch of folks get together and play in a league, at different courses around town. You don't have that structure now through the 4 cold months of the winter. Give it a whirl, live a little, go outside the box a little bit, and play a scramble or play an alternate shot a couple times this winter and let me know how it goes. I think that'd be kind of fun for you. Again, any questions at all about that or thoughts or reactions? Feel free to let me know. I'm looking at my computer here.
Winter's 5 months long in New Hampshire.
Say that again, please.
I said, winter is 5 months long in New Hampshire, almost 5.5.
Yep. I've heard people say that. When I lived in Montana, they told me we only had 3 seasons: July, August, and winter. So
Yeah.
different parts of the country, right, have different lengths of the winter. But some of you, I know, are playing in simulators now. Since simulators, I've had mine for about 12 or 13 years now, but simulators are becoming more and more popular all around the country. So even when you're playing in a simulator, play a scramble or an alternate shot or some kind of a modified alternate shot or a modified 4-ball, and just see what kind of scores you shoot and what you learn about your game and any of your friends' games also. It'd be a lot of fun. All right, now the second topic I wanted to bring up today was to show you something about the items that I've sent to you. Many of you have gotten your Right Golf Answers for 2024, the 16 video lessons that cover all 5 of the golf shots. And since putt and chip are so similar, I decided to use putt or to have you focus on your putt and chip for December. 2 shots for December, putt and chip. And now, since we're on the 13th of December, almost halfway through, so I hope you've spent a week or two looking at these videos and practicing there on your putt and chip. Now, again, where you may be, it may be pretty cold, and so it would be pretty tough to go out onto a snow-covered putting green and practice your putting. So I fully understand that, and that makes a lot of sense to me. So what I'm going to show you here today are some ways that you can practice in your home that I've found to be very, very useful over the years. You know, the old saying is that the grass is always greener, always looks greener on the other side of the fence, you know, that you're somehow discontent with your home and you somehow are covetous toward your neighbor's home or jealous of your neighbor's home on the other side of the fence. And so we who've lived up north most of our lives are quite often rather jealous of those people who live down south for their golf games because we say, oh, well, they can play 12 months a year. So they should be really good at golf because they get to play 12 months a year. They don't have the cold weather, which forces us inside. Interestingly, for the 10 years as an adult, I lived in South Georgia and then North Florida and then South Florida. Over the course of about 10 years, I lived down in those warm environs where we only saw snow twice in 10 years in any of those places. And it was a dusting. Those people, I would be at tournaments with a lot of the juniors that I would teach, and the parents there would complain that the northern players had an advantage over the southern players. I'm serious. The parents would say, boy, those northern kids, they come down here to these summer tournaments when the kids are off school, and they have an advantage over our kids because our kids have been working on their game all year. They're kind of burnt out. Those northern kids, they come down here, they had 2 or 3 or 4 months off. They come down here in April and May, they're fired up for it. They were going to school. And then in June, July, and August, when they're off school, they come down to these national tournaments in South Georgia and Florida and play great because they had a few months off. So, as the old saying goes, the grass seems to always be greener on the other side. So, when I came up here, I actually started to believe a little bit of that after a few years down south in South Florida in the Fort Lauderdale area. And I thought, you know what? There's some truth to that. Some of these players really are kind of getting bored with their golf game. They go through the season and they just keep going right through October, December, January, March. And they are kind of bored with their game. They're kind of burnt out a little bit. They need a rest. And I thought, you know what? Maybe there is a good value to taking a couple months off. And it was about that time that the boss where I worked at the academy closed the academy in South Florida. And I looked on the new internet. This was 1999. I looked on the new internet in February, new to me internet, and I found there was a position up here at Meadowlinks in Cincinnati. So with my old friends at the Park District. So I enjoyed coming back here, and I've really been enthused since 1999, the last 25 years, to help you really learn how you can improve a lot in the winter with your golf game, even up north here. So let me show you. Now, any questions about that? 4 months, December, January, February, March. December, work on your putt and chip, a lot of it. January, give a lot of attention to your pitch. February, give a lot of attention to your approach. And then March, the 4th cold month, give a lot of attention to your drive. And I'll be referring to those on our Wednesdays together. So, someone's raising their hand here. What's your question?
It's not really a question.
Yes, sir.
I just wanted to say that I kind of agree with you a little bit. I'm up here in New Hampshire, and the course just closed a month ago. There's a few that are open, but they're just going to let people tear up their greens. But I found that going to the simulator just once a week, even if you only play 9 holes, it kind of, you're kind of tapping the brakes on your game, but you're still swinging. So, I think I would be a hybrid. In other words, I wouldn't take time off, but if you can find a simulator, I can just tell you that it's going to keep you in the game. Like yesterday, I played and I shot a 37 on the back 9, and I shot a 53 on the front 9, but I had 2 blow up holes in the front 9. I had an 8 and a 9, kind of silly. But anyway, but other than that, it was a pretty good score.
Yeah,
So
beautiful.
you can stay in the game is all I'm trying to say. In other words, but maybe just tap on the brakes. Don't go to the range. Like maybe the average player might be golfing twice a week and then go to the range. I don't know. Just do it once. That's all.
Yep, exactly. I love it. So let me show you one thing about what you can do for your putting. And the first thing I'll mention here is, as it says here this is a portion of one of those 16 videos that many of you have gotten here the last couple of weeks. That when you look at this month with your putt and chip, the path on the tilted arc, the face is square at impact, the mind is clear, and the eyes are still. What I've done in these knowing your right golf answers in these videos, I've tried to make it really, really simple and really get to the crux of the matter, okay, for each of your 4 shots. So this is the same for the putt and the chip. The path is on a tilted arc, the face is square at impact, the mind is clear, and the eyes are still when you do well with these. So I won't go into all the details there. In fact, the only one I'll kind of demonstrate to you right now is the face being square at impact. And so what you can do for that is to use these 2 little gizmos, okay? There's the putting rail that many of you have. And then here's the putting board that many of you have that comes from Seymour Golf. This comes from Eyeline Golf. I can send you a link for each of these so you get a little bit of a discount. And then I actually have a couple of these in stock. Next time you're in here for your lesson or for your league round, you can get these from me if you don't already have them. But as you can imagine, the rail does not guarantee a perfectly square face at impact. It says square at impact there. But the reason I put that on there is because the path on the tilted arc will be perfect when you slide your putter up and down this rail. You keep it lightly touching this rail during your stroke, and this guarantees that your path is on that tilted arc, and your path will be the same stroke after stroke after stroke. Now, what will happen when you line this up at your target, as many of you know, I have a regular 4¼ inch golf hole here in my studio that we putt toward. So what will happen when I line this rail up at my hole and I putt along this rail, lightly touching the rail with my putter all throughout the stroke, then it's guaranteed that the path will be good. It doesn't guarantee the face will be square at impact, but guess what? What I've seen over the last 40 years is if someone has a little open or closed face at impact after 5 or 10 of these putts, that goes away after the next 5 or 10 putts. And then for however long that person wants to stay there, they keep their face square at impact almost every time. Now you will never, hardly ever miss a putt when you're practicing this on this rail. So that's how this item works together with your own practice to kind of find out after the fact, did you have a square face at impact? Now this will help you get a square face at impact also. The best way to use this is for you to take this board, put it on the ground, and then put the rail on top of the board. And that will help you really get a lot of great putting learning accomplished this winter, especially here for the next 2 or 3 weeks of December that we have left. This will really help you immensely. So putt up and down that rail on top of that board from Seymour, from the Seymour Putting Company, and it will help you really learn a lot about the tilted arc, and it will help you learn a lot about the face being square at impact. Now, most of you know that direction is really only about 10% of the importance when it comes to putting. 90% of the importance is distance. But it still is 10 or 20% of the importance, direction is. So you can use this time in December to really get a feel for what a square face at impact is and what a perfectly natural arc, tilted arc path of your putting stroke is. Now, any questions about that? Check here, see if we have any other questions. Not right now about that. So now, the other thing I'll mention about this is, remember, the chip is pretty much like a putt. The chip, in so many ways, can be considered a lofted putt. You can do the exact same thing with your 6 or 7 or 8 iron this December, the next couple more weeks we have left in December. Go ahead and swing your 7 iron or your 8 iron or your 6 iron, whichever club you use to hit all your chips with. Swing it up and down that rail right here. Just swing it up and down this rail. You actually hear the sing song there. And in another part of the video about how to hit your putt and chip that many of you have, right there, you'll hear that little sing song, and that actually helps you with your tempo also for your putt and for your chip. And you can get accustomed to making a lot of chips as well as putts here in December. So that can help you immensely to come out of December here on the 1st of January, 2024, having a much better feel and confidence for your putt and your chip. All right, so I'm going to see again if we have any other questions here or comments. And of course, most simulators are horrendous at putting and chipping and pitching. So, you know, if you are going to a simulator, it's going to be kind of hard for you to learn about that. There are ways to learn about it. We'll be covering that more on some future Wednesdays. And I covered in these 16 videos for you as well. So but I did want to take the time here on this Wednesday, this Q&A session, this office hour session, to remind you that a great way to think about, to conceptualize your winter is you have 4 months to get really good at your 5 shots. And to let you know that you could learn a lot from that Grant Thornton Invitational. Nowadays, if most of you have cable or Roku or all these different things, YouTube TV and all these different things, PGAtour.com, you can go back and look at the highlights of the events. And that's kind of fun. This coming week will be a lot of fun, obviously, with the father-child tournament or parent-child tournament. I think Annika is playing with her stepson. So there are a couple ladies in it, as well as the men playing with their sons or their grandsons. Trevino, I think, likes to play with one of his grandsons. So it's kind of a nice family time. A lot of fun that obviously a lot of us have with our children and our grandchildren. And we had with our dad and our grandpa and our grandma or whatever. So you can have a lot of fun watching that. We'll probably talk about that a little more next Wednesday also. Any other thoughts or questions before we sign off for this office hours on Wednesday?
None for me.
All righty. Well, thanks so much. Much good practice the next 7 days. We'll see you in about a week, if not sooner. Take care.